And without further ado, allow me to briefly to introduce our featured guest today. Balaganapathi Devarakonda is professor of philosophy and former head of philosophy at the University of Delhi. His main interests are philosophical counseling, early Buddhism, and historiography of Indian philosophy. Along with teaching and research, he's also an APPA certified practitioner and co-founder of the PPAI, the Philosophical Practice Association of India, and of course, in that capacity, a great pioneer of philosophical practice in a country which arguably is the source of practical philosophy, certainly from a Western perspective. So you have, according to your own words, your present concern is to popularize philosophical practice in its various forms in India by digging them out from the classical Indian tradition and simultaneously borrowing them from the Western and other Eastern traditions. So that's really quite fascinating, and I want to pursue a few of those avenues with you. But prior to that, let me just ask you a couple of background questions, Bala. We do this with all of our guests. What initially drew you to philosophy?
Yeah, to begin with, namaste to all of you, and thank you so much for this kind invitation, Lou. And it's wonderful to see the vibrant community again coming back through Agora and through Lou Marino's platform. I feel honored to be a part of this platform, and yeah, let's go forward. Probably into myself, right? That's what is going to happen now. Uh, I felt that if I look back now, my journey into philosophy, I believe that I haven't made a choice of getting into philosophy. Probably philosophy chose me. That's why I'm into it. So in that particular sense, my entry into philosophy was a kind of accident, right? In the sense that uh, during my undergrad program, I had to choose few options in front of me, and whatever I chose, I did not get. So that's how I got into philosophy. That's why I say it's a kind of accident, and also probably philosophy chose me. That's how I see it. And then during that point of time, I mean, I'm talking about early 1990s in India. Choosing philosophy is like philosophy is nobody's discipline, and choosing it is like, what are you doing with your life? Probably it's still the same case uh, in some pockets of the world with regard to philosophy. Uh, but I was ridiculed by the people around me, saying that philosophy is no discipline, and if you choose philosophy, what will you do? So they had a conception of a sannyasin, a renouncer in their mind. So some of my own family members ridiculed, saying that if you choose philosophy, then for finally you have to beg on the roads with the saffron clothes. Okay, but almost like say uh, 35 years apart. I am in one of the best universities in India, Delhi University, and I was trying to contribute to the development of philosophy in whichever small way that is possible. And uh, as Lou said, in a small way, I'm trying to pioneer not philosophical counseling movement. I'm trying to pioneer my own group of pioneering, individuals to come together. So I see this enterprise to be a kind of Mahayana from Buddhist perspective. So Bodhisattva says in Mahayana, individual cannot get liberation unless the community gets liberation. So you can't go and get your liberation on your own. You have to take this community along with you. So that is how we are into now. In fact, Louis is also doing similar kind of work, like all of us in many different countries, trying to build communities of pioneers. No, we don't call ourselves pioneers. We are building communities of pioneers so that the philosophical practice movement goes further. So, coming back to my own story, I was in a very small town in India, a small state called Andhra Pradesh, which has a town called Kakinada, which is a coastal Andhra town, where we have the river Godavari flowing and taking care of the paddy fields. And that's how it's in a way, it's called the rice bowl of Andhra. So it produces a lot of rice. So education was good there. And um, from such a small town, I moved to Hyderabad Central University, which is in Hyderabad. Now, present state is called Telangana, in which it is located. There is a central university, which means a federal university, um, um, called Hyderabad Central University. I joined that university for my master's program in 1993. And then I did my master's, my MPhil, and then my PhD from that same university, uh, which really, I believe, made the foundations for me. Not in terms of the knowledge or my way into philosophy, but basically it diversified and it built confidence in me to look at the discipline from my own perspective and also reach out to the others, reach out to the other in possible ways through philosophy. So that's what has made a transformative effect. My studies at Hyderabad Central University, which have influenced me a lot. So that was the platform on which uh, probably I am standing. It's not even platform; it's the foundation on which I'm standing now. And then I got an opportunity of working in a university. From 2000 onwards, I worked there, a university called Dravidian University. In fact, some of you may know this distinction that people often make between Aryan and Dravidian. No? This is a different kind of linguistic bifurcation that people uh, might have got acquainted with. So, in order to establish this Dravidian identity, there is a university which was established. So, I joined that university initially and tried to pursue my philosophical interest in reading classical Indian tradition to see if there is any non Vedic tradition within Vedic tradition. Okay, that's how I thought of identifying the Dravidian strand of philosophy. So that is how I started getting into the classical Indian tradition in a deeper way through my research in the university. Uh, and I think the last part of my journey now, I mean, the preceding part of the journey is like 2015, I joined Delhi University. And that again had a very different kind of transformative effect on me. It opened me to various possible avenues and also various other ways of doing philosophy rather than just teaching and research. And that's where we are into, like, I am into especially doing public philosophy. And this is what I passionately enjoy. And also teaching and also trying to take academic philosophy, improve itself a bit. Academic philosophy is not everything. And also, academic philosophy has so many problems and so many limitations that it has to identify and then rectify. And unfortunately, the philosophical academia is not even ready to do this kind of reflective enterprise so that it can improve itself in a better way, the way in which it can deal with everydayness of individual problems and then reach out to the society and bridge the gap between society and philosophical academia. So this is where I am into now, and I'm being supported by many people, many friends, wonderful friends like Lou Marinov, and I have a wonderful international community and national community and students community supporting me in this endeavor. So that's why I don't see it to be me, rather me with so many contributors who were richly supporting me with all the resources. So that's how probably I would talk about my formative stage and then reaching out to the present. I
Yes, well,
hope it makes
thank
sense.
you. That makes a lot of sense, and we share some, I think, some common pathways, although we come from different places. And it's not uncommon, Bala, in the West for families to frown on family members who claim that they want to pursue postgraduate degrees in philosophy. Everyone worries about what they'll do for a living and so forth. This is probably almost a universal problem. So I'm not astonished that you encountered it in India, especially given the interests in, I guess, STEM and especially technologies and engineering and so forth. That would be the more, I guess, expected kind of calling for someone to pursue. Tell us a bit about your initial research. You did both an MPhil and a PhD after the master's. That's a bit unusual. And what were the themes of your research for your postgraduate degrees?
Yeah, this is again very interesting kind of a small part of my research life. uh, I was trying to understand the relation between science and philosophy. That's what prompted me to get into Thomas Hobbes. So I read Thomas Hobbes and I tried to look at the way he has built his philosophical system. I mean, his political philosophy on the basis of the modern science of his time, right? And basing whole system on matter and motion, building the psychology on the basis of physics, and then building political philosophy on the basis of the psychology that he has built on physics was a very fascinating kind of enterprise that I found. So I read Thomas Hobbes and got very impressed by even the precise way that he writes. I even now I enjoy that. I have a lot of disagreements. That's a part, but you would love the way he writes. See, the persuasiveness of his writing is wonderful. I enjoy that. So I worked on Thomas Hobbes for my MPhil and PhD thesis, and try to see how he has built this relation between science and philosophy, and calling philosophy Nova Scienza, which means new science. That was his contribution. And interestingly, what I found was he built his philosophy, political philosophy, on Newtonian and Galilean sciences. Okay. I mean, those which were prominent at his point of time. But then later on, there were changes because science or any knowledge for that matter is not constantly or eternally true. It gets slightly displaced after a period of time. For instance, Ptolemy's theory of geocentric thing was rejected by Copernicus, and now that is how we have internet now. Otherwise, internet would not have become possible, and our meeting would not have become possible. Similarly, it's like Newtonian foundations, Galilean foundations were slightly disturbed by Einstein's theory of relativity, and now, if somebody builds a political philosophy on scientific foundations of his time, and later scientific developments try to, disturb the strongness of the foundations, then how do you look at the whole edifice still continuing? Because for most of us, Hobbes still makes a lot of sense, right? Pop still makes a lot of sense. You cannot deny that. So how did he do that? So that's what I looked at. I also looked at his modern contemporary interpretations in terms of Warrender, Leo Strauss, etc. So that was my research
Uh,
long back.
that's really fascinating. I mean, you can't know that I also had a burning interest and an abiding interest in Hobbes, and maybe you've read some of my work on Hobbes, but he was a great systematic thinker of the early moderns, and but he met Galileo in Padua on one of his grand tours, and he was very impressed with the way in which Galileo had removed astronomy from a branch of theology and really establish it as a science. So it brought him into a great trouble with the Inquisition.
Yeah.
Okay. He also knew Descartes.
Yeah.
And he had a rather interesting correspondence because Descartes invited objections to the meditations. You know, if you read the original meditations, they come bundled with six objections. And Hobbes's objection was he stood it on its head. He said, Rene, you've got it all backwards. It's the case that I am, therefore I think. And being a consistent materialist, Hobbes, regarded mind as a kind of epiphenomenon, we would say today, of brain. So he horrified Descartes with this materialism. But it also doesn't surprise me in a certain way because I mean for us, and I think that Locke and some of the later British empiricists had a much greater effect on Western politics, particularly America. Locke is certainly one of the most important philosophers for us in our foundations. But Hobbes is the social contractarian. Hobbes is credited with having really delivered a coherent and a kind of viable version of a social contract, even though one at times can be, I suppose, put off by his authoritarian views. Nonetheless, we can see, and in particular in the latter half of the 20th century, what we see everywhere is a replication of end-person prisoners' dilemmas in which majority defects. We end up with tragedies of the commons, as Harding called them. This is classically a Hobbesian state of nature. So he anticipated a tremendous phenomenon that's become very widespread in many sectors. And he is still owed a lot of credit, I think. But certainly he's been displaced in the Western Academy by other, let's say, different kinds of ideologies. But anyway, I really resonate with him. And I think that maybe our part of our connection and our personal connection has to do with that touchstone of all people you could have gravitated towards in India, looking westward, or looking in your case, to the west. How it could have been Hobbes is quite remarkable. But you are also steeped in classical Indian studies, yes? I mean, you read Sanskrit, for example. You're able to interpret Sanskrit in terms of its modern connotations and denotations?
Yeah, that was another very interesting aspect of my childhood, which I missed to mention here, because that has a significant impact on me, on my present me. In fact, until my sixth standard, we have like first to tenth standard as schooling. Okay, so I mean, until my primary schooling, I was in a convent school. Okay, the so-called convent schools in India in 1980s. Then my father somehow felt that I should have a different kind of education than these convent schools. He took me to a Sanskrit school and he made me join in a Sanskrit school where Sanskrit was given much prominence over any other discipline. So English was not so important then. It's Sanskrit which was very important. So I was into such kind of a wonderful school where by the time I reached the end of my schooling, we used to converse in Sanskrit. So it was such a wonderful experience to be a part of that school. And we were taught all the big texts of Sanskrit in terms of we have Kalidasa, who has written three dramas, which are very important to know, and many other classical texts, classical Sanskrit texts were introduced to the students during those days. And this had a strong impact on me. I don't know whether people agree with this or not, but learning and speaking Sanskrit or reciting Sanskrit verses will definitely have a neurological impact. This is scientifically proved as well because Sanskrit is considered to be one of the classical languages which is developed in such a way that its utterance of those words would have a huge impact on the biological system and neural system of the individual. Okay, so that is how some of the alphabets which are called bijaksharas, or asked people are asked to recite these bijaksharas. Which bijakshara means seed syllable. Okay, bija akshara. Bija is seed and akshara is syllable. There are certain bija aksharas, seed syllables, which people are asked to recite continuously to rejuvenate the consciousness itself. You would be asked to walk so that your blood circulation increases. But what is the method that you should use to make your consciousness vibrant? They found language, and language to be one such kind of wonderful tool, not just for the communication, but also for the vibrancy of the consciousness itself. So that is how I felt. I was very privileged to be a part of the school, which has taught me a lot of things. And this is how my entry into classical Indian system, classical Indian philosophical systems, has become a smooth one rather than a complicated one. Because without knowing Sanskrit, if we get into classical Indian systems, we can still do Indian philosophy, but it's it's you would understand some amount of insufficiency within yourself. In fact, I am reminded of one of the modern philosophers of India by name Daya Krishna, who lived in Rajasthan University, who has done his PhD somewhere in Cambridge, I believe. He came back to India and he argued that Indian philosophy done in English is not Indian philosophy at all. And of course, there were responses to that. Nalini Bhushan and J. Garfield responded to him saying that even in English, you can do Indian philosophy and there is nothing wrong in it. I mean, that's a dialogue open for discussion. But the point is Sanskrit's importance in my life and my entry into Sanskrit and continuation and being with even now when I'm doing philosophical counseling and philosophical practices, when I talk about that, I say, you please go back to classical texts and read classical Indian texts in a way that they offer wonderful insights as methods, as approaches, and tools for philosophical practices and counseling. So this is very much required, and that is how I look at the cultural rootedness of the self. So I argue that each one of us are culturally rooted. I mean, not all, but at least most of the people are culturally rooted, and those culturally rooted should look for their own cultural resources to come out of the crisis. So this is one of the important aspects that I practice even in philosophical counseling sessions. So probably we'll come to that a bit later. Yeah,
Well,
but that is how I am into classical Indian tradition and Sanskrit, Lou. Yeah.
yes, and I mean I'm an admirer of that. Everyone in this audience is speaking an Indo-European language, and we recognize that the roots are Indian ultimately. So and it's back to Thomas Hobbes, who argued quite cogently that, as you well know, we can reason because we can speak, not the other way around. That words are the tokens of understanding, and if we use
Yeah.
language in an inappropriate or sloppy or abusive way, as is the fashion these days, then meanings are completely distorted, upended, and people can become very disturbed by that sort of thing. So I think it's really what you're doing is really interesting and important. The fact that you're doing it in one of the probably most ancient philosophical culture in the world is quite astounding. And I do want to come back to this. Now, what about the historiography of Indian philosophy? I mean, how would you characterize your work in that area?
Yeah, this is a continuation of what I just said. It's like for me, I was when I was reading classical Indian tradition, friends, those who may not know about this, unfortunately or fortunately, it could be both ways. Most of the uh, teaching of philosophy, even if it is teaching of Indian philosophy, happens in English in India.
Really?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Except in some universities which are completely Sanskrit universities. In most of the universities in India, Indian philosophy is also taught in English. So I often consider that if we are teaching in Indian philosophy, classical Indian philosophy in English, we are probably, because English and Sanskrit are two culturally loaded languages, two distinct, geographically evolved, culturally loaded languages. And if I try to explain a concept of Shakespeare in Sanskrit, there could be a possibility that at least 50% is not being communicated. Same is the case with doing Indian philosophy in English. So at least 50% of the sense is not getting conveyed because we don't find exact terms, exact feeling, exact sense of the term that is being communicated. And in fact, some of the terms that you find in Sanskrit do not have any translations at all in English. For example, dharma. So how do you translate it? You don't know how to do that. And you use different kind of words, and each one of the words that as synonymous to dharma would give a different sense to the listener, and the listener may be uh, imagining it to be something else. So there are such kind of problems. So that is how, when we are teaching Indian philosophy in English, I thought I should try to see where and when this has started and how Indian philosophy is conceptualized in this particular way, the way we are teaching now in Indian universities. So this is what led me to a kind of history of Indian philosophy, or history of the discipline called Indian philosophy in India. And that is how I got into historiography of Indian philosophy. So these are different steps that I had to transcend to reach out to the present stage. Because I'm saying this because modern discipline called Indian philosophy has emerged roughly around 1860s or so. That's where modern university system was introduced in India. British modern education system was introduced in India, and they established one or two universities, and they never gave a chance for Indian philosophy to be taught in departments, but somehow they have accommodated at a later period of time. And Radhakrishnan, Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, some of you may know him. He's a wonderful philosopher of the modern period who has tried to bridge the gap between East and West, because by then the distinction was very so strong that East is East and West is West kind of attitude. And he tried to argue, saying that Eastern philosophies are uh, very rich. So he built the communication between West and tried to establish the significance of Indian and Eastern traditions. He makes this interesting statement that the term Indian philosophy looks so alien to me. Alien to me. I feel a strange sense of alienness when I hear the word Indian philosophy. Indian philosopher saying it. So I mean, the label itself is a kind of troubling kind of one to him, and that is how we say, uh, if you make a distinction between metaphysics and epistemology, it may make sense in the other parts of the world. But if you look at Africa or India, the distinction between metaphysics and epistemology may not make much sense. I'm saying this because, please don't mistake me, because in Indian tradition, reality, the word that is used for reality is sat. Sat. The word that is used for truth is also sat. Okay, which means the distinctions, academic distinctions that we have evolved over a period of time because of the academic protocols, did not exist as such in many of the traditions. So, if, for example, while using the so-called modern protocols of teaching, if I try to look for metaphysics and epistemology in the same sense in Indian tradition, I may I may be searching for something that did not exist at all. So it may really put me in trouble, right? So this is a very interesting kind of thing that is happening. So I thought I should explore into this historiography and then present some of the insights. So it's a kind of post-colonial study of Indian tradition, and it is also a kind of a reach to classical Indian tradition to bring it in a better and improved way to our own selves. So it has both the perspectives involved in it.
Ah, that's really very interesting. Thank you. And then you also have an interest in early Buddhism, although you jumped to the Mahayana theme very quickly today in your opening remarks. But let's go back. So you looked at the Pali Canon? I mean, have you actually studied early Buddhism? Is this pre-Nagarjuna, or what is your main focus when you speak of early Buddhism?
Yeah, Buddhism is another fascinating strand of Indian tradition that I really enjoy reading. Uh, uh, One of the things that fascinated me, that drew me towards Buddhism was my own place where I belong to. As I mentioned, it's called Andhra Pradesh, and it has a hill called Nagarjuna Konda.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the hill of Nagarjuna, and people say that Nagarjuna lived there. Okay, and people also believe that even during the time of Buddha, Buddhism has traveled. If you remember, if you have a vague idea of India's map, then Buddha was in the northern part of India. He was born and he moved around northern part of India. But even during his lifetime, a group of people have come down to south and come down to the area that I'm now talking about as Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so that is how even during the lifetime of Buddha, Buddhism entered the region where I was born later on. Nagarjuna also belongs to that same area. But interestingly, after Buddha's Mahaparinirvana, I mean, passing away of Buddha, um, there was, of course, diverse opinions about what are actual teachings of Buddha, and that is how we had Buddhist Sangiti, which means Great Assembly of Buddhism, and then we had Second Buddhist Assembly as well. And after that, there was a difference of uh, conceptualizations of Buddha's teachings has grown up so much. So within 100 to 200 years after Buddha's death, there were 18 different sects that have come up in Buddhism. Not one or two. Divergences are not one or two. There are 18 divergences that have come up. And the controversies between them and among them were codified in a book called Kathavattu, which was written in Pali. It belongs to Pali canon. So I looked at this text. I studied Pali and then looked at this text and tried to. There is one particular group of Buddhist sect which fascinated me because of various reasons, called Anthakas. And one of the reasons is because Andhra and Anthaka, the region from which I come from, and the group seems to be from the same place from which I hail from. So that is how I felt I should work on this particular group and try to understand their philosophical doctrines. Interestingly, not much work is done on Kathavattu even now. Probably my book, and then there is one more book. Only two books exist on Kathavattu in world literature. So my interest in Buddhism at that point of time was to look at what are the contributions of people from my own region to Buddhism and how distinct they were and how richly they have contributed to later systems that have evolved in terms of Mahayana. Because I argue in this book that the resilience that we see in Mahayana, because Mahayana's versions are the ones which have traveled across in different parts of the world. Theravada is restricted to few pockets, but Mahayana traveled widely. Okay, so why? Because it has a kind of resilience involved in it, no, in its own structures. So I argued that this resilience is because of the contribution of this particular sect called Anthakas. Okay, and obviously Nagarjuna comes after this particular sect from the same region. So that was the continuity of the story that you would like to mention. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much for revealing these insights to us. And I have two more things that I want to broach with you before we open the floor to our audience. I'm sure they want to interact with you, and I won't stand in their way. But just a brief digression, because you spent 3 years in Jamaica fairly recently. You had a mission to bring Indology there, yes, to Kingston, to the university, and I should have taken advantage of your day down there to visit you and didn't. But in any case, you came through New York, so we're very grateful, that we managed to meet you finally in person. But what was it like being in Jamaica? What was that experience like for you? And you also took not only Indian philosophy there, or rather Indology with you, but you did some philosophical practice too with Jamaicans, didn't you? Could you tell us a bit about that experience?
Wow. That's like one of the most fascinating parts of my life. And I'm so happy that you asked me about that. You can see it on my face, I'm more than happy to talk about that. Indian government has chairs of Indian studies, Indology, etc., in various countries. In fact, they have such 72 such chairs existent now. Okay, you will find it in many European countries as well as, I mean, universities in European countries, even in American, no, even in America, you will find a couple of chairs.
Mhm.
Canada, different parts. One such chair of Indology and Gandhian studies exists in Jamaica with the University of West Indies. So somehow I applied for it long back, some 5, 6 years. And after that, suddenly I get a call saying that whether you are interested. And I thought, why not? So that's how I got into Jamaica, a beautiful place, a wonderful place with beautiful people, and a very welcoming kind of a country, though it is often projected in other way, saying that very violent kind of one, etc. I would always argue that which country is not violent? At every country, you will find certain pockets which you should avoid. Go. Okay. So that is how there are certain places which you may have to avoid, but otherwise it's a peaceful and wonderful country. But keeping that aside, I went there with a mission to teach Indian philosophy in the University of West Indies. And I taught few courses. But, philosopher or a kind of philosophical activist in me is not satisfied with this university teaching. So I started teaching, or that's the way that's the time when I discovered myself to be a public philosopher, in the sense that I started going to smaller communities and start teaching philosophy, not as philosophy. So, for example, I used to go to a group and encourage them to talk about something and pick up some theme from that, and then encourage them to give their own reflections on that particular theme, and then take it to a philosophical level and tell them that, oh, whatever you said was exactly what Aristotle has said. They were like, wow, I'm like Aristotle, right? So public philosophy is so much of fun, and it is like discovering Thomas Hobbes, discovering Einstein, discovering Aristotle within themselves, which will give you a kind of elevation, no, to them. The person who discovers it is wonderful. So that is how public philosophy is something that I have started doing, and I started enjoying. We had UNESCO World Philosophy Day, during which we had a meeting, and people asked me, what is it that we should do in an innovative way so that we can reach out to more number of people on this UNESCO World Philosophy Day? So I told them, let's do something like talk to a philosopher. They said, what do you mean by that? I said, uh, they'll just go to any public space and hold a placard, like talk to a philosopher, and whoever comes to us, let's talk. And they felt like, oh, that's not possible. See, I'm an outsider, so I have no inhibitions at all. Right? But for a professor of UV, it may sound different, strange. But they cooperated with me, and that day I literally, I took this placard and sat in the university department lawns of different faculties, and then students came. Some people laughed at me, and then some people looked at that and curious. Then I said, "Are you open for a conversation?" People came, and we had wonderful discussions. And the consequence of that. So the next semester, people who have opted for philosophy were more, and all of them gave the reason that they met me, they met somebody on the lawns with whom they had a conversation with regard to philosophy, and they found that philosophy is useful to them, and that's how they are here. So it's like even for department, it was a such a pleasant surprise to see that doing public philosophy would make admissions get increased. I mean, more number of people getting interested in it and coming. So I always felt this is what prompted me to further work on public philosophy, in the sense that it's not the students alone that you should look at. You should, in general, go to the public and start talking to them so that they encourage their children, and also they encourage other people, telling them that philosophy is useful to life. So unless we don't do this kind of public philosophy more and more, how do we expect our discipline to be serving the society directly, number one, and also our discipline getting strengthened by more inquisitive people coming to us? So this is where I have done public philosophy, and in fact, Indian High Commission hosted me for many talks on philosophy. I developed a series of lectures called Philosophy for Everyday Life, taking insights from Indian tradition. So once the High Commissioner, Mr. Masakui, is a wonderful gentleman who has supported me completely, fully. He understood that I'm trying to do some good work in the society, Jamaican society. So he completely supported me, and he asked me to give one lecture in High Commission. So I said I will develop a series of 5 lectures, and I gave those 5 lectures there. And towards the end, he understood that there is so much of inquisitiveness among the audience that he came to me and said, "Don't stop this series of lectures. You continue this series of lectures, because otherwise, there are some people, otherwise, they don't come to Indian Embassy. Such kind of people are coming and trying to learn something from Indian tradition and Indian embassy." So he was quite happy, impressed with this kind of work. And that is how Philosophy for Everyday Life lecture series, where in fact my methodology, I changed my methodology. I was not trying to teach philosophy to them at all, because public may not be interested because they already have a wrong conception of philosophy in their minds. So I told them I pick up some problem that they have, that in common that we see in the society, and then make them talk about it, and then take it to some philosophical system and show them that, oh, if you look at that, probably there are some solutions. So it's like starting from an immediate concern and then going to philosophy rather than giving merely a philosophy lecture.
Yes.
So this methodology worked really well. And I always had wonderful, good number of audience. In fact, all the seats used to get filled. And then, Jamaica is a fun-loving society, and Sundays are very precious to everyone in any part of the country. Sunday evening, Jamaicans coming out for a philosophy lecture is really something, because they're party people. They enjoy partying so much. Rum is one of the wonderful drinks, that they enjoy. So it's like uh, leaving out all that and attending philosophy lectures is something that really shows how people are open to learn from philosophy. But that's where our academic philosophers are not so open to share this knowledge and then help them to navigate their concerns, life concerns. So that is how my journey of Jamaica was a fascinating one. Of course, I couldn't do many academic activities in the sense that I couldn't organize any conferences or seminars. That was one of my lackness. But otherwise, if I look at my journey there, public philosophy is something that I have done quite well. I have done something like beach philosophy. We used to sit on the beach with a beer bottle and then have discussions, which I used to take them to the level of philosophy. And people were like, "When do you come back again? We want to have discussion further." And we had philosophical cafes, we had mindfulness meditation sessions, which were also very successful. And in fact, at one particular place, continuously for 1.5 years, we had sessions on mindfulness meditation, which uh, which had a huge impact on me and on the people there as well. So that's my story of Jamaica. Very fascinating, and in fact, I have rediscovered myself in this Jamaican journey.
Yeah, wonderful. That's wonderful, Mala. Tremendous. Sounds like it was just as good for you to be there as it was in terms of your presence in the local culture. Now, last set of questions, and then we open the floor. But now we come to a big topic, which is India. And what what we see as Westerners when I visit India, fairly often, and we'll hope to see you in Delhi before too long. But India is changing rapidly, and we perceive this. You must even see it more quickly, being immersed in it. Modernization, secularization, good things in terms of the growth of the middle class, lifting people out of poverty, economic development, huge, all kinds of things going on in the culture. But also, therefore, we see the same kind of pervasive problems as westernized and technologized societies are facing lack of meaning. Young people, and you have more young people than any nation, young people are not always finding their way nowadays. The older traditions are somehow being deconstructed or dissolved. Is this something that you notice? And is this something that philosophical practice, in your view, can help to address?
Perfect. Yeah. The present India the, is very crucial in the sense anytime, any point of time, you can argue this way. I don't deny that. But otherwise, the present India is in a very interesting situation in the sense that it's called Young India because the younger population is more in India than in any other country in the world now. Okay. So, which has a lot of advantages and which can also lead to some serious problems. And one of the problems, if you are looking at, is the way Western culture is accepted and made part of their own selves. And also, one of the ways is the way technology is getting into the lives. I don't see them to be problems, but I see them to be creating certain kind of concerns. And how would the youngsters deal with them is the major concern that we have. I always argued that that is how philosophy is needed more. We have in our countries philosophy, but the need for philosophy is more now because philosophy has wonderful insights that really help people. But when I'm saying this, I want to make a kind of distinction because Lou's question says the traditions are dissolved, etc. Right? So that's how I want to make it more elaborate a bit in the sense that, Lou, interesting fact about India is even after colonization, we haven't lost our classical tradition. If you look at many other colonies, their pre-modern was completely buried. No? Say, for example, some of the colonized countries have completely lost their pre-modern. For example, Jamaica, they don't have the classical at all, right? Their story, their history starts with the colonization, and then it proceeds. So this is the case with many of the colonies, but India is the only colony which has retained the classical past of, say, if you accept 5,000, or if you want to take it further to 10,000, you can always do that historically, because there are no evidential proofs with regard to that. And there are literary proofs which take it to 10,000 years. So even now, you have classical, and then the modern, and then the contemporary, and then the technology, and then whatever that you talk, simultaneously living. That is the one I think is the biggest advantage for India, because it's present, never buried. It's past. It's past continued in terms of classical knowledge systems. They still continue, and they still inspire. In fact, I read it somewhere. Somebody can help me in uh, establishing or firmly stating it. Even the programming and the AI is also taking the help of Sanskrit as the model language, it seems. So that is how I believe the continuation of the classical still remains to be a rich source of addressing the present concerns. The best example I can give you is yoga. Best example I can give you is mindfulness meditation. Okay, they are still there. They are in a new form. They are helping each one of us and helping all of us in the best possible way so that we can perform better now. We can live better now. So that is the one I think is biggest advantage. And biggest challenge is like this younger population would become very soon older population. So young country will not remain young country forever. Young country will become no people. I mean country with aged people very soon. So how would India address that is one of the interesting challenges. Even there, I believe philosophical counseling and philosophical practices are the ones which will definitely have huge impact. In fact, I started working in this direction now for past 3 4 months. Like, if after 30 years, India has to face this aged population, what kind of epistemic infrastructure that is required for India to handle such kind of an issue is something that I'm interested in working now. And I'm collaborating with some friends from China and some friends from Korea in this regard, because this is one of the, if, in fact, this is the problem of many countries, but I mean, India is going to face it now. That's why I'm going to look at that. And in this direction, again, philosophical counseling and philosophical practices, I believe, would be very helpful in dealing with these challenges. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That's a very comprehensive answer, and we'll look forward to the evolution of the new Indian identity as it emerges. I'd like to open the floor now, Bala, and invite our guests to raise their electronic hands or put up a physical hand. If you'd like to ask a question or interact with Bala, please feel free to do so. You're more than welcome to join the conversation. Julia, go right ahead, please.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your talk. I felt like I was sitting around Buddha being in the audience there. Um, I'm wondering about, I've been studying with Pierre Grimes doing philosophical midwifery for 50 years now, and he always thought highly of Nikolananda. Have you studied Nikolananda? So I'm
Yeah.
I'm wondering about, his liberation of the spirit work and how, I'm just curious what your impression is of Nikolananda and also uh, Plato and Socrates, and do you see that they fit into the modern work of philosophical counseling for you?
Hmm. Thank you so much for that question. In fact, even before I answer this question, I want to apologize to Lou because I wanted to join for this course, Philosophical Midwifery, that probably you might have started it from today, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately, today I mean, last 24 hours, I had so much of packed day with too many lectures that I couldn't accommodate my time. Since I am not being able to be there for the first one, I cannot, say that I will be part of the remaining course. That's why I didn't join for this course. Otherwise, I admire the work of Perry Grimes, and I mean, I want to take this philosophical midwifery deep into India, and I'll try to make attempts in this direction. Unfortunately, we lost Uliana as well, right? In the
Right.
recent past. So I believe that's one of the fascinating areas. But I want to develop it in such a way that I would include Indian insights into it and try to develop it. So this is where I'm working on it to suit the cultural embeddedness of the individuals in India. I'm sorry if I may sound this way, but I believe that I have to do something to India, my country, where I am.
Right.
Okay. So that is how, even when I approached Lou, I asked him, like, my people are important. So I want to look at my people and help them. So will you be there to support me? He said, yes, why not?
Right.
So he's such a generous person and magnanimous person. So he said, why not? I would be there to support. So that's how we have traveled this long. I think we started the journey in 20, I believe, 2020. And
Yes,
then,
during the pandemic, that's when we
yeah, during the pandemic. Yeah.
And Gaurika Madan is part of the APPA. She's in India, in
yeah,
Shanghai.
Gaurika Madan. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Gaurika Madan.
And Apurv. Yeah.
she's
Right. She is the one
actually
who we
here.
met.
I mean, I see her online. I don't know if she wants to unmute and join the conversation, but Karika, yes, there you are. Please
Hello,
say
She's there?
hi, hello,
Oh, hi,
yes,
Gaurika. Yeah, she's doing wonderful work here,
Yes.
yes,
promoting philosophical midwifery and also dream analysis, etc. So I believe we still have to prepare or create a kind of community, no? More than individuals, as I was mentioning, we have to create more pioneers along with us so that it goes in a deeper way. And definitely, Gaurika is doing a wonderful job in this direction. Yeah, coming back to this point of Julia's question with regard to Nikhilananda, I haven't read Nikhilananda much, so I am afraid whether I would be relate his thought, I mean, work, liberation of the spirit to Socrates and then talk about it. So
Yeah.
I'm not very sure whether I can really make any useful comments on that
Oh,
because
good.
I haven't Nikhilananda. Yeah.
Good.
Sorry about that.
I love that honesty. I love your talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Julia. Great to see you.
You too.
We have a question in the chat room from Mario Granados, who's from Mexico City. Okay, hola, Mario. ¿Cómo está usted? And he's asking, firstly, Val, he's very impressed with your experience and your work in public philosophy. And you may know that David Sumiaker and his associates have done great work in Mexico and throughout Latin America. But Mario, in this case, would like to know where he can get more information about your work, about your methodology, about what you do in public philosophy. Or he also asks about information about meditation as well. So would you like to say something or put something in the chat room or either way or both ways?
Yeah, yeah. I'm acquainted with the work, wonderful work that Schumacher is doing, and I'm In fact, he organized a panel at World Philosophy Congress last year at Rome, and I was a part of it. And he organized a wonderful dinner party as well. I remember that.
Yes.
So where we could assemble and then talk about it, talk about philosophical counseling, and also go beyond academic and practice, and then develop individual relations, human relations. So I appreciate the kind of work that he is doing. Yeah, with regard to my work, I'm coming up with a book which would be released soon, but otherwise, my publications on philosophical counseling are available at Academia EDU website. I would share the link in the chat box. And with regard to the meditation, etc., probably I'll leave my email address. If you write to me, we can probably have one-to-one discussion, and then I can help you with the knowledge of what I'm trying to do, which may be helpful to both of us, right? So thank you so much for your interest in this regard. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Bala. And we'll look forward. First of all, I didn't know about this new book. You have to tell us a bit more about it. Okay, Mario? So we can put you in touch with Bala with email, and also his publications are listed on academia.edu. That's a big website, and it's all public as far as I know. Everything's accessible, yeah? So what's this new book? I hope it's in English, not Sanskrit or Hindi. Is it going to be in English? Tell us.
Yeah, it's going to be in English, but basically I'm looking at I'm trying to consolidate what I have been doing so far, in the sense of what is my own conception of philosophical counseling. So when I was doing this public philosophy in Jamaica, and also subsequently continuously thinking about it, I was trying to consolidate my own conception and also my own methodology. These are still evolving within me. I believe philosophical counseling for me is a kind of enterprise that makes the counselee become self-reliant. Okay, so for me, self-reliance is the crucial concept, which in fact envelopes whatever we call autonomy, free will, agency, etc. Freedom is important, autonomy is important, and then agency is important. But for me, much broader concept than these three is self-reliance. Because I was trying to develop this concept called philosophical lag. We talk about jet lag. Jet lag is like when you transcend time and space. I mean, when you cross time and space and then reach out to some other time and space, what you get is jet lag. So I'm seeing this time and space to be philosophical, and you will find a kind of philosophical lag when you try to when you accept certain kind of epistemic structures to be your own structures or your own epistemologies, and when you try to transcend them, that's where I bring in this philosophical lag. This I'm still developing it. And another concept that I'm working on, in fact, I gave a talk on that, is wisdom universals. Yeah, Gaurika, please go ahead.
No, I want you to complete first and then I can ask
Okay.
my question, please. Yeah.
Oh, sure. So the other concept that I'm looking at is wisdom universals. So how are these? See, if a counselee comes with a particular empirical problem, the solution also must be particular empirical problem. And how can we argue that we'll give a philosophical solution, which could be wise, but which is away from a kind of a bit abstraction than the empirical problem. So this is where I am arguing that this wisdom universals are very important, that we have to conceptualize which connect an empirical problem with an empirical solution. So that's where philosophy plays a crucial role. This is another one that I'm working on. In fact, I gave a talk at one of the universities in Goa, in India, called Goa University, It's available on YouTube. One can have a look at it. So for me, it's like when I'm talking about philosophical counseling, the individual, while encountering the challenges of the external world, negotiates with himself or herself. So it's like you are negotiating with, I mean, the challenges are basically your interactions with the external world. And this, for the solution, you start negotiating with yourself. People think that it's a negotiation with the world, but mostly in philosophical counseling, it is negotiation with the self. And in the process, what happens is the individual knows or realizes himself or herself. And it's not just knowing the self, it is also that is how they try to know the world as well. And in this would lead to a kind of change within himself or herself if it is required. And this further helps the individual to rebuild his or her relation with the world, people, and objects. So this is how I see it. And the challenge comes up because the institutionalizations or all the epistemic structures that we have developed for ourselves are a consequence of the interactions that we have continuously with the institutions outside us. And these institutions appear to be enabling because that's how they come they come into existence. All the institutions, whether it is society or polity or whatever, they tell you that I'm liberating you. Okay, I'm enabling you. I'm giving you autonomy. This very term giving itself is is putting you in a structure, you know. So in a way, all the institutions that are built around us, they try to enable us. They appear to be enabling us, but at the same time, they also disable us. If they enable us in a particular way, they disable us in multiple different ways. This is true with regard to technology as well. Technology enables us, and technology at the same time, when it enabled one, it would enable two or three of your own, disables two or three of your intrinsic capabilities. So this process of becoming uh, disabled or dependent more and more on that is something that causes problems. And I think for the future generations, philosophical counseling has to address this. I don't want to use the terminology of alienation, etc. These are all important terminologies, terms that I don't deny them, deny the importance of them. But I would use this self-reliance dependency. And the dependency in terms of making you believe that I'm actually making you independent, and in the process I make you dependent. This is what is happening continuously, and that is where this program, I mean this methodology that I have stated, like in order to encounter the challenges, negotiate with yourself and understand your own independence from the institution. So it requires a kind of awareness of the dependency and also coming out of the dependency by self-discovery. So this is the kind of broader framework with which I am working now on my book clue. So thank you for asking about
Thank you. This sounds very intriguing. Are you actually writing it up as we speak? Is this a work that's being written?
yeah. This is the framework, and I'm still writing the chapters and
Fantastic.
going in a piecemeal way.
Do you have some expected date by which you might publish it? Or is that
I'm
premature?
assuming that at least by December of this year, I would be. I'm thinking that I will be able to complete.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're going to look forward to reading it. And
Thank you.
then I'll be asking you about when I will have had a chance to assimilate your notions about self-reliance. I want to come back to you about Emerson and the New England Idealists because he was our great exponent of a form of self-reliance from an older time. Which,
Yeah, yeah.
so
I read him.
have you looked at Emerson as well?
Yes, yes, I have done that. Yeah,
So of course Thoreau and he were both enamored of the Bhagavad Gita. They had discovered Indian philosophy through Charles Wilkins, whose father, who was commissioned to translate these works by Warren Hastings, no less. And a copy of this ended up in the library of Emerson's father, who was a Unitarian minister, and they were seeking this cosmic unity, and then they finally found it in Indian philosophy. I
yeah,
really encountered also that John Adams knew about this because he was part of that same circle of Unitarians. And Adams, and I read a quote by Adams, which I had never seen, and I'm sure they don't teach it in standard American history. He said, "We need more translations of Sanskrit works into English in order to help disabuse us of many of our own bigotries," he said.
yeah. In fact, there are many manuscripts which are still not yet translated or edited and published, you know. We don't know what is hiding in them and what is waiting for us to discover. And one of the taglines that I have for self-reliance is not having more, but being more. Okay. So you don't gain self-reliance by having more. You achieve self-reliance by being more. So your being has to be like get into, people. So this is what I have practiced even in Jamaica. It's like when I reached there, I thought I will not have any economic relation with anyone in the sense that I will not take money from anyone, okay, for anything that I do. So I'll just do it as my own life mission. And this is how I gave, at the end of my tenure, I gave 100 lectures in Jamaica. 2 years, 100 lectures. It's not 3 years, Lou. It's only 2 years.
It's only two,
two
but you made
years.
it sound like three. I mean, from the amount of activity.
Yeah. In 2 years, I gave 100 lectures and nothing at all. They call me, I just go there and
Yeah.
talk and then come out. If they offer some food, I would eat because I was living all alone. But otherwise, no compulsion. It's like that's like I felt it's like being more rather than having more.
Yes.
Uh, uh, I took it from Mahatma Gandhi. uh, Gandhi is the one who talks about self-reliance in terms of being more.
Mm.
So I got really inspired by this seed that he has given me. Yeah.
We have three hands up. I'm not sure if Garika wants to actually speak.
Yes, I would like to ask. Thank you so much, Professor Bala, for sharing about your journey with us. And it's wonderful that you're developing a methodology of your own. While addressing Julie's question, I'm so sorry I'm not able to switch on my camera at this point. Um,
Okay.
while addressing Julia's question, you mentioned something about midwifery that you would like to develop it in such a way that it embraces the culturalness of India. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Hmm. I have to talk to you personally about that. In fact, I want you to do that. We will work together on that. Because recently I have been reading this philosophical midwifery for past an year, and that is how even for your session I was sitting there and trying to see what are new insights that I can gain, and that is why I wanted to do this course with APPA, which starts from today onwards, right? And also to see how do we integrate it with the classical Indian tradition and cultural rootedness. This is one of the major concerns. I don't have any finished ideas in my mind. I only have certain rough aspects which I see them to be going along with classical Indian tradition. So we still have to work out on that to say something on this platform.
Okay, so that's to be continued. And Bala, you're welcome to join the course next week if you're able to attend the next four sessions. I'll email you separately about this, okay? But I mean, you're
Okay.
more than welcome to jump in. No one's going to object to your presence. On the contrary, we'll very much appreciate it. Annapurna,
Thank you.
and then Alexander. Annapurna, would you like to unmute, please? And maybe make yourself visible, or at least ask your question to Bala.
Hello, sir. Hello,
Hello.
everyone. My
Hello,
name is. I hope I'm audible.
you are.
Okay. Hello, sir. Hello, everyone. My name is Annapurna Tiwari. I'm a PhD scholar at University of Delhi. So, thank you very much, sir, for sharing your valuable insight on Indian philosophy. So, my question is: you mentioned how Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan served as a bridge between Western and Eastern philosophies. So, could you kindly share your own perspective on this? How do you view the relationship between Western and Indian philosophical traditions?
Yeah, this is a very interesting one because now I should not bring Sarvapal Radhakrishnan and I should bring myself and try to answer. Uh, yeah, this is of two kinds. Okay, one is looking at it from the colonization perspective. Okay, so there was a colonization of education system and colonization of knowledge system, which cannot be rejected, which is visible and which is available now to scrutiny. Okay. But if I take it beyond philosophy and try to look at it from the perspective of philosophical counseling, then I would say there is no East and West. In fact, as I was mentioning, I think it is my duty to talk about this particular thing. Thank you, Annapurna, for making me talk about this particular aspect. Friends, during COVID-19, uh, the early stages of COVID-19, we are all troubled. Everybody is troubled. And India, being a big nation with huge population, is equally troubled. And we were looking for avenues of helping our people. How do we do that? No, if people are isolated and confined to their own walls, then how do we help them? And I have been talking about philosophical counseling, but I don't know whether it can be certified or somebody can help us with that. Though I'm talking about giving lectures on philosophical counseling, but actual practice is not happening anywhere in India at that point of time. So I approached Lou, and he was such a magnanimous person. He said, "Yeah, we haven't done anything like any online program so far on philosophical counseling." He said, "We will do it for you now." And he came forward and we brought together a group of 16 to 20 Indian scholars from various parts of the country. India is a big country, from various corners of the country. And Lou led that, and Lou and Wana, I salute them, They came forward, they said, "We are ready to host this course and help you in gaining certification." So that is how, in fact, I believe philosophical counseling or philosophical practice movement in a big way began with the support that we have gained from APPA, from Lou specifically, and Wana, wonderfully supported event. So, and then when we completed this, that's how I say the international community that came forward to support philosophical practice movement in India is so strong and so concrete, so significant. That's why I don't see East and West here. I may see it when I talk about philosophy, Indian philosophy, etc. But when I see it in terms of philosophical practice, I don't see any East and West distinction because we are coming together. In fact, Rick is not here, one of the vice presidents of APPA. He has done wonderful work on Indian tradition. And Lou is teaching Indian philosophy in City University of New York, right?
Yeah, in
So, I
English, I
mean,
regret to say, Bala, I have no choice, but you'll have to forgive me.
but this distinction that we are talking about is slowly, I believe, getting marginalized. And if I'm talking about philosophical practice, I don't see this distinction to be existent there at all. many of the insights from Indian tradition. So very freely and wonderfully, and in a more proficient way, are being used by many of the European and American scholars in their practices. So I believe that's something that all of us should be happy about. So this complementarity that we are rediscovering is something that I believe which is to be celebrated at this point of time.
Okay, thank you so much for
Thank you, sir.
that. Alexander, please, another hero who's up at all hours in Eastern Europe. Please, Alexander, greetings to you and go
Greetings.
ahead.
Firstly, thank you very much on the wonderful talk. My question is on topic of self-reliance. You mentioned Emerson influence on you, and my question is, what about Nietzsche? Like, it's often overlooked big Emerson influence, being influence of Emerson's concept of self-reliance on Nietzsche concept of master morality. He's also, I think, find the root of autonomy and self-reliance. So, is some Nietzschean influence on you, maybe?
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexander, for that question. I did read Emerson because he specifically wrote on self-reliance, and I try to see some similarities and also limitations in taking Emerson's thought into my own understanding of the result of philosophical counseling or the process of philosophical counseling. But I haven't read Nietzsche in terms of self-reliance in any time so far. But now that you instigated me, I would start reading it. Because I also see that many aspects, even if I'm looking at philosophical midwifery, I can also say that it is also a process of self-reliance. What is being intended at the end is a kind of self-reliance, right? So I believe each of the methodologies that we have, whether it is cognitive behavior therapy or so Socratic midwifery, they're all trying to hint you the final goal. Uh, of course, somebody would argue that it is philosophical health, but I would consider self-reliance to be the foundational one that is to be achieved. Okay, because continuously we are made to depend. Every development that happens around you makes an attempt to make you depend on it. Okay. So in the process of this dependence, we lose ourselves and we don't look at, and also whenever there is a crisis, there is a problem, we are asked to look for the solution outside. And I think COVID-19 is the only one which said, no, outside world cannot help you. No medicines, nothing at all. You have to look for your inner resources to maintain yourself. So you be disciplined and you maintain certain kind of detachment with the world, because no attachment literally and also metaphorically. This is the kind of revelatory insight that we have got through COVID-19. And that is what prompted me to argue that self-reliance is more important goal of philosophical counseling. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Great to see you. See you soon enough. I'm assuming in Croatia.
Of course.
Julia, your hand is up again. Would you like to ask the last question of the evening? It's getting close to 10 o'clock. Bala, we're going to let you get back to your busy Monday shortly, but let's give Julia one more chance to ask a question if she'd like to.
Well, with Atman being so a part of Hinduism, I feel like the Indians have a leg up on the self. And having taught psychology now for 35 years, I always was interested in seeing students' reactions to the self. And there tends to be in this culture a lot of strong belief in the idea that the self should come last in the priorities. one should think of God first, and then their mother second, and maybe their neighbor third, and then the self is way down on the priority list. And so have you come upon that kind of bias against the self in general?
Wow. This is nice. This is really troubling. Yeah, good. Thank you so much, Julia, for this question. Yeah. It is true that Indian tradition gives importance to, we say mother and father are the first gods, and then the teacher, and then you come into picture. Okay. So they say, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, and then you come into picture. Okay. Which means your mother is the first god, and then father, and then your teacher, and then you come into picture. So this is how the tradition teaches us. So Julia is saying that in that case, what kind of self-reliance is it? Because you were first asked to depend or no respect or give first priority to others rather than to your own self. So what kind of self-reliance am I looking at? This is a very interesting, philosophical question to me. I would deeply reflect on that. But if I have to give an immediate response, it's like it is true that the tradition has taught us to give importance to the other. But actually, when I'm talking about philosophical practice and philosophical counseling, I am talking about it from the contemporary issues and concerns perspective. So that is how I would still read the classical tradition, but I would urge people, the counselees, to be reliant on themselves so that they can take up the further steps of giving priority to the other. So unless one frees himself from this epistemic structures, institutionalized epistemic structures, which are making one dependent excessively on them, one will not be able to even give priority to the other. Okay, other in the sense of other human being. So that is how it's like disentanglement, so that one would stay with the self to give importance to the other. Otherwise, even the other doesn't become significant at all for the individual because of this epistemic structures which are making us dependent on it excessively. To just give a crude example, somebody is, a young boy is attached so much with his mobile or laptop, right? So if I tell them to give importance to the God or priority to the parents, they would never care about it. So first I have to disentangle this one, okay, the dependency on the technology, or not complete dependency, but at least the detached attitude towards the technology of using it as only as an instrument, and then rely on oneself, and then one would go towards the prioritizing the other. So this is how I see it. But I can definitely get back to you for a deeper reflection after a deeper reflection on this. But thank you so much. This is good. Good one to close.
Oh, well, we're not quite there because Patricia has her hand up. So Patricia will give you the last word. Last question to Bala. Please go ahead. Would you like to unmute? You're muted still. There you go.
There. I just had one question and one very brief comment. And the question is if Bala had any suggestions for a preferred translation of the Dhammapada into English.
Probably I can communicate to you later on email,
Okay.
Patricia.
Okay. Thank
on
you.
Dhammapada. Yeah. We
Okay.
read something, a translation of Rajagopalachari, I believe. But I'll write it clearly so that I can,
Okay.
you will understand. But if
Thank
I
you.
find the text, I'll share the text as well with you. Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm writing my email address here.
Yes, thank you. Bala has just put his
Okay.
email and his academia link
Okay.
into the chat room. So if anyone wants to grab that before we sign off, please go ahead and do so. There's his email address at Delhi and his academia account, which has, I guess, some publications that you're going to want to read. There's some pretty good translations of the Dhammapada out and about these days. We're finding a lot more. There's a big growing industry with us. You mentioned all the Indology chairs now being established in the West. We're getting more and more translations of texts, so that's always a positive thing. Shall we sign off? I've returned to the gallery view so we can see each other, and I would like to thank you so much, Bala, for spending this time with us. It's been really invaluable. And again, I apologize for the awkwardness of the hour, but even so, we have all these wonderful colleagues and friends who've shown up for this. I'm so happy that you were able to share with us your views, your insights, and your experiences. And we will get the recording up on YouTube before long, and then I'm sure you're going to have some very interested viewers who could not be with us tonight, but who I know have already had some email from people who said this is not the right time for them, but they're going to tune into you once we get the recording up and public. Okay, so thank you so much, Bala. It's been great to see you again, and we will look forward. I'm looking forward to our next visit to India. We'll have a chance to meet again in person.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lou. But otherwise, friends, I believe one of the most important and pressing need is to provide a better understanding of philosophy to the general public. So how do we do a bit? We don't have to do the maximum, but all of us can do one small bit of our own effort, right? So let's do that. And this is what I urge even in my classrooms with philosophy students, saying that you just go home and talk to your parents about what philosophy is and how it is going to be useful to your life. That's enough. You don't have to change the world. You change your family's perspective, right? Then there would be a big revolution, a philosophical revolution that is coming up. Similarly, let's talk about philosophy in a positive way, because I see my own colleagues in some of the parts of India talking negatively about philosophy, saying that philosophy is useless. But I think it is useful, and we all are enjoying that fruits of it. So let's spread this positiveness of philosophy so that we see a better world. If we need better world, then we see better doing a better kind of philosophy and practice of philosophy. Thank you so much, Lou, for this kind invitation, and I'm happy to be a part of this wonderful Agora platform. In fact, initially I was thinking, how did he name it as Agora? In India, Agora, right?
What does it mean? What's Agora mean in India?
Agoras are serious practitioners of Tantra, one form of Tantra.
I got it from the Greek. It's the marketplace. I'm afraid when it hits Greece, it's much less special, and it's the word for the marketplace where Socrates used to give his dialogues, and so that's our connotation of it. But of course, it comes from, like everything else in the Indo-European family, it does have its source in India.
Right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
now I
everyone.
understand.
We'll be seeing you, some of you, next month. The book club will be back in May with Rick, and he'll be talking with Sky Cleary and her work on Simone de Beauvoir, another form of self-reliance from the existential side. And then we will resume in June with the Agora surprise guest. It'll be announced. Okay, so stay tuned, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again soon. And thanks for joining today. It's been great to be with you all. Bala will be in touch. Okay, take good care, everyone. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Have a good
Thank you
morning,
all.
evening,
Thank
day, whatever time it is in your zone. Be well and safe until we meet again. Bye bye now.